never a loss, but it's a lesson. And that's kind of, the making mistakes is only powerful if you're able to learn from it.
When you make a mistake, you got to be able to learn how to turn that into an advantage.
Yeah, venture hustles, life is really what you make it. Building up your brand is whatever you create it. Really ain't no limit. You just gotta love it. Working day and night, it's all about the venture hustle. Hey, venture hustles. Time to take it to the next level. Let's go.
Welcome back to the Venture Hustles podcast. I'm your co-host Saj, and I've got Jack with me.
How we doing?
Fantastic, man. How are we doing?
We're doing good. And before we get this started off, for those watching on YouTube, you might be seeing some things that are new to you, new to us as well. I'm like so excited about it. You have no idea.
Oh yeah.
So I want to turn your attention to our co-host Saj. Okay, I want to see what he's drinking out of. Okay,
Well, we got some Venture Hustles mugs.
Love that. And then also, why don't you give a little preview what's under that jacket?
A little Venture Hustles.
Do like a little, spread the wings a little bit.
Like
with the jacket.
Get the shot in, Yusuf.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Love that. So.
We we got some nice.
We got some merch on the way.
We got some merch on the way. We figured we start embodying physically, the brand and the messaging behind Venture Hustles.
Yep, and also with that, I would say in the next week or so, we're going to be coming with a slogan. I know we've been asking you guys for help, so if you want to contribute to the Venture Hustles community here, come up with a slogan. If we choose your slogan, we'll send you some free merch. We'll send you a free shirt
with
it.
Idea. Yeah, we totally can.
100%.
It's a good idea. We were talking about it. We definitely want to come up with some cool slogans and things.
We got a couple in mind, but always want more ideas. So if you send us something and we use, you're gonna get some free stuff with the slogan on it, obviously with the logo and stuff.
With it. We're gonna get some hoodies. We're gonna get some hats,
T-shirts, crew necks,
crew necks. It's just cool, also visually to see on stuff that we use and rock every day.
Hell yeah.
So it's a Sunday. We are filming on a Sunday for the first time, and we are. It's triple digits. It's really hot today, man. How are you liking the weather?
I like it,
Yeah.
It's okay. Need some AC and stuff. But,
yeah.
I mean, it's summer, so it's not here for long.
Yeah.
We're here for a good time, not a long time. So.
Yeah, to throw some context in there, it's 100 degrees outside. It's probably 110 degrees inside because filming on a Sunday and our building shuts everything down on Sundays, and our security's out. Everything's turned off other than the lights, so we're filming in really hot conditions, extremely hot and humid conditions. But we're here getting the job done.
So I guess getting to the meat of today's conversation, today's episode.
Yes, sir.
What do we have?
We are talking about the power of making mistakes. When it comes to business, building your brand, pretty much anything, along the lines of you building your startup, your company, your venture, you're going to be making mistakes, and a lot of people don't really know how they can learn or adapt from it until they encounter those things. But it's also important to know that that's going to be a part of your journey.
Yes.
So that's what we're going to talk about today. It's more of how important are these lessons?
Yeah, I mean, a good saying, right? That's most that you may have heard, probably have heard, is it's never a loss, but it's a lesson, and that's kind of the making mistakes is only powerful if you're able to learn from it, and something else I always like to kind of make sure I say closely to that is when you make a mistake, right? It's important to understand what happened, what you did, and then when it went wrong, and then obviously adjust, right? Because you can't keep doing the same thing expecting a different result.
Yeah.
Right? That's the definition of insanity.
Yeah, basically, when you make a mistake, you got to be able to learn how to turn that into an advantage, turn that into an advantage compared to your competitors or someone else that's doing the same thing, or maybe not learning from that mistake and using that to grow, to succeed, you know, and just long-term survival.
Yeah, I mean, it's just experience, you know?
Yeah.
It's always experience.
Yeah.
So what do you think are some of the most common mistakes, let's say, for a beginner, you know, entrepreneur or a beginner in the startup scene? What do you think are some of the most common mistakes?
So I think that like varies, right, from person to person, also business to business, industry to industry.
Sure.
I think it some of the most common, I think, in my experience was a lot of times we were kind of like the go with the flow mentality. You know what I mean? And it's more of like, okay, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. And basically the inability to predict, the inability to have the foresight to adapt and actually go the extra mile to
Right.
take the necessary steps or make the important changes that you need before you even encounter them. And I think a lot of it kind of came down to experience, right, for us. And it's like, for me personally, it was more of like, I learned that in my second venture, right? And this is one of those things where I realized that you have to be able to start predicting. You have to start making these patterns that don't exist, that you maybe don't see yet. And for me, it was just directly a direct correlation with that, you know, where it was just like, okay, this is something that I can absolutely avoid. It's no longer a mistake.
Right.
It's a mistake if you don't take action towards it.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, I guess in that kind of scenario, at the end of the day, after a while, it's like, you know, almost maybe deliberate.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, okay, what are we doing here?
Yeah. What about you? What do you think are some of the most common?
I would say for me, one of the first things that comes to my mind is lack of and effective communication, like with your whether it's your co-founders or your team. You know, and especially in like a startup kind of scenario, it's so important to communicate with your team. And then it's like, okay, what do we communicate about? Responsibilities, expectations, you know, because if everyone thinks everyone's doing something but doesn't know what it is, you'll come to that meeting a week later and nothing's done. It's like, okay, well, we just lost a week. Like, what are we doing here? You know what I mean? And then the other side of it would be, you know, to use everyone's time effectively. You know, you don't want 3 people doing the same thing. You know, ideally you want someone to kind of do the groundwork and do everything. Then you have a meeting and then you guys adjust, you bang heads on it, you know?
I mean, I totally agree. I think communication is so vital and essential to a successful team.
It has to be. It's one of like the foundations, like for me, you know, it's like, is there such thing as over communicating? Sure. But for me, I think you would much rather be in a place where you're over communicating and then being able to pull back instead of under communicating and then doing it the other way.
I don't think it's a bad thing if you over communicate, because like your boss or your peers are going to think you're annoying. I'd much rather have somebody that's annoying and over communicating than someone that has to be basically you kind of walk around eggshells and you're like constantly guessing, playing mind games. Like you're not a mind reader, you can't tell what people think. I'd much rather know exactly like who you are, what you're bringing to the table, even if you're you know kind of like overbearing, annoying, constantly asking questions.
Yeah.
Like, that's always better for me personally.
I would agree. And then you know another side to that is typically if you're like it's always a good sign to ask a lot of questions. You know, like because to the person that you're asking them to, it's like okay, you know, it's like I know you're thinking about this, you're trying and you want to understand. Like especially like you know for us in the you know, at FFP, like anyone, especially for new people that we bring on, like that's one of the things I look for, to be honest, is them asking a lot of questions. Yeah. You know, obviously when I'm instructing someone or I'm teaching someone something, you know, that's a little bit different, but I like when people ask like a lot of questions other than just like the normal stuff, because I know their wheels are turning, they're asking these questions so that they understand it in their terms, and then they'll be able to facilitate that to whoever they need to facilitate it,
Yeah, I mean, we just hired a couple people recently in the last 2 weeks, three weeks, almost like a month now.
Yeah, we've hired like 4 or 5 people in the last 2-3 weeks.
4 or 5 people. We interviewed tons of people, like 30, 40 people, I'd say at this point.
Yeah.
Just to source those people.
Yeah.
And through the process, that was something that we were looking for. And it wasn't even like a sales position. We weren't even hiring for sales positions because like communication is pretty important. But for those, it was more of like, okay, because one of the things that we are very, very happy and proud of talking about it at Final Few Productions is we don't micromanage. Like we don't have an environment or an office culture where we constantly hover over what you do or checking with you every couple seconds, seeing if you did everything. We hire staff with the expectation and the training and the knowledge and experience, knowing that they're going to be self-sustainable, knowing that they're going to be able to hold their own and actually going to be responsible. Like that's the type of people we want on the team.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, who wants to be micromanaged?
No.
It's just like, and I don't have time to micromanage someone, and then obviously neither do you. No, so it's like,
And no, but also beyond that, like also the people that are like from a management level perspective, nobody enjoys doing it. Right? Like somebody like, let's say our head of design, like she wouldn't want to, like that's not her nature, that's not her style, because that's not how we do things here. Everybody here is pretty reliable, and that's where we're. But that being said, there are challenges. When you're expanding your team, not everybody can fit into that, and there's like different things that you have to put in place. But one of the kind of circling back to the reason why I brought this up was communication was an essential thing that we were looking at, right?
Yes.
Is like how good are you? How active are you? And week 1 and 2, we realized very quickly from the people that we hired, like who's there and who's not. Yeah.
100%.
And that's always like a good indicator.
100%. So common mistakes, right? We had communication, and then we also had what was the one that you said?
I think just foresight and just not.
Being able to predict.
Yeah, not playing by the ear, not kind of just going from every second.
Like blindly
second.
going.
Yeah,
okay.
Going with the flow.
What are some other? I think another common mistake would be. Like I guess this also kind of falls in with communication a little bit, but then like understanding the kind of people that you're hiring, like being wary of people that you're hiring, like if and when you get there, you know what I mean? Not just filling a position kind of thing. You want to make sure that they're actually the right fit. They fit the company culture, obviously the job description, they can get the job done. And then, an ideal world for a startup, you want to kind of be able to grow within, so you want to see an individual that's, maybe a little bit ambitious, wants to grow, and kind of wants to take that role on,
I would say another. I agree with you. I would just say kind of this is an extended take on the communication side of what you mentioned. Which
as you can tell, communication is like so important.
I would even say that the communication is at the top. Like out of everything that we just talked, which is 2 main things that we talked about, communication is at the top. But I would say an extended section would be expectations.
Yeah, that's a good one. Like, to set them correctly.
Yeah. Like setting expectations, knowing what you're getting into. And a lot of people don't realize, like, when you're starting, okay, look, if this is your first startup, and this is your first company, your first venture, anything, it doesn't have to be a startup, right? You don't really know what to expect. Like, this is, the reality is you're kind of going in blind. Unless you've been part of a startup under somebody else's supervision or leadership. But if you're kind of starting your own venture for the first time ever, and you're going in blind, you don't know what the expectations. You have no expectations. You don't know what to set. You don't know what rules to set. There are no rules. It's really just like a free for all. At that point, I understand, and I think it's very understandable. That's part of the process. You're going to learn through trials and tribulations, mistakes that you're going to be making, and some of them are going to be very costly. Some of them might cost your company and your venture, who knows, but it's not the end all be all. It's very, very important to learn, calculate, and not make those mistakes again. Not saying you're perfect, and nobody's perfect, and you might make those mistakes again, but your goal should always be to take the lessons learned, adapt, grow. That's the only way you improve, right? That other than that, so expectations, I would say for me, when we're hiring, when we're looking to grow our team, and I think this would be relatable to anybody that's looking to grow their team or start a company. Make sure that the people that you're bringing on know exactly what they're going to do, what their roles, what their responsibilities are going to be. Because let's say you get really comfortable with a particular person that's in your company or in your team, and the roles start evolving, start changing, and you haven't had those things that you've communicated with effectively.
Yeah.
Now, if it's like you start saying, hey, yeah, it's a startup, it's a company, we're growing, you should kind of know this comes with the territory. You can say that all you want, but at the end of the day, make sure that you communicate very effectively that, hey, look, we might encounter these things. This might happen. And if you're not okay with it, communicate back with me. Be very clear what you are capable of doing, what you're not, what your boundaries are, what your limitations are. And that's really, really important, in my opinion, to actually set a foundation of this is like not take. I guess what I'm trying to say is it's really important for you to establish that so that you don't encounter problems when you are feeling good, when you're kind of you've got the rhythm going, and then things start getting crazier and start getting picked up more, and then you're at a point of like, man, this would hurt. And at that point, if you haven't already addressed those issues, it would cause problems.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that's a good point, because as a founder, right, or as a co-founder, you know, you're the leader of the company, right? So as a leader, as having a position or a role,
any leadership position
in leadership, right? Like it's your job to make sure, have these conversations, establish the expectations, and say, hey, you know, as we start to grow, you know, this might be something that you might have to do. What do you think about that? You know what I mean? Like, is that something that you want to do? Is that something that you're able to do? You know what I mean? And then it's just, as a leader, right, you're the one responsible for taking that first step, opening up, you know, the door for conversation. And then just so you, as the founder, as a leader, depending on the outcome, can say, okay, thank you. I go here. And now you know. You know what I mean? Now, to go real first circle with that information, then you can now start to predict things. And then you can say, okay, this is what we're going to do. If this happens, you know, if X, then Y. If A, then B. The train's got to keep moving, man.
Yeah.
Train don't stop for nobody.
So as we're thinking more about this, right? What other common mistakes do people make, and how does this work? You know, one of the things that I would say would be not calculating your expenses and not budgeting things right, and that could be detrimental. Yeah. I personally, so for me, when it came to investing money, like me personally, pretty much any of my ventures, it's never been a thing where it's been like paycheck to paycheck, or it's never been like not calculated. It was just how I've always kind of done things, even when I was in like high school, or just like, you know, just that's been something that I've always planned ahead of time. Okay. But I can tell you that I've seen a lot of my other people, my peers and other people that I've worked with in the past, grossly miscalculate or just not even expect more expenses or just growth. Remember, with growth, like, this is simple, you know, more money, more problems. As you make more money, you will start spending more money. So a lot of times you'll spend more money than you're making money. And you'll get to a point where you're not going to realize that things are kind of like getting out of control. Yeah. So you want to always, you know, be calculative, think about a simple, this is your investment, this is your return. If you've got proven results, that's really good.
Yeah. I mean, from a cost standpoint, right, to kind of like for me, this is how I, especially when I was like just learning a lot of this stuff, this was very simple for me to understand, you know, like understanding what kinds of costs that you have. Yeah. Right. You have your fixed costs, which are never going to change. So, for example, your rent, that'll never change. Right. It's going to come in every single month. Then you might have your variable expenses, right, or your variable costs, which might be, let's say, electricity, or maybe your marketing budget. Right. That might fluctuate from month to month. So, again, like you said, got to be aware of these things. Make sure you know how much will be going out at the end of each month. And then obviously your job is to bring more in than you know, that's going out, you know. Yeah. But like for me, those were, you know, very, and you can kind of separate these things like in like a bank account too. You have an account for your fixed expenses, an account for your more variable expenses, and then you know, you want to be organized, you know. And so you can take a quick look, like, okay, this is where I'm at, bang, 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 bang. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of things that money is everything, right? At the end of the day, when you're running a business, it's like you have to have some sort of a runway. You have to have some. We've talked about this in previous episodes before.
I mean, you need to make money.
You need to make money. Yes, these are good points. I would say also some of the common mistakes I guess people make is not just, not being able to adapt or not being open enough, not having an open mindset enough, thinking that they need to adapt. And the reason why I say this
You think you're saying like they don't have to adapt, you're saying?
Saying that a lot of people have a very rigid
Okay.
mindset of like, I don't need to change.
Okay.
The way I'm
Okay.
doing things are fine.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I think that's a pretty corrupt, and I use this word very like carefully because it can bleed into other things. You know what I mean? And the reason why I say corrupt mindset of like thinking like that is because you're in a world right now. We're in a world where pretty much every single thing will change, will grow, will evolve. It's constantly evolving. Every industry, every space.
There's a saying, I think it goes something like, if you don't change with the times will change you.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's evolving. So using the combination of communication with your team, letting them know what kind of trends you're seeing, having that ability to see, in the future, if you will, to start to predict things. And then, like you said, when you start to predict things, you're able to adapt and change, a little bit quicker than, let's say, your competition, or maybe even, quicker than you had thought. And that's how you stay ahead. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think we talk. Let's give some live examples of this particular thing of us, stuff that we do.
Okay.
In the last, I'd say 12 months, we've constantly pushed the boundaries of what's possible in tech and what's not. From, a lot of people, let's say you're listening to us for the first time. Jack and I are part of the Final Few Productions team, the core team, the leadership team, where we basically are, servicing clients in the startup, entrepreneur, tech space, pretty much all kinds of different industries as well that are kind of coming on board into the tech space. And our goal is to basically create custom software, custom games, custom apps, and very recently, blockchain. And the reason why we said it's important to adapt is because this is something that I've personally never been afraid of doing, which is learning, like basically always taking that risk, experimenting. And I use that word a lot because a lot of times, like,
all right, Jack, are you ready for an experiment? We're gonna break some stuff. All right, let me get the suit on, and okay, here we go. No, but go ahead.
Jack's referring to a moment in time, I would say probably 4 or 5 months ago when we figured out something that was working really, really well after an quote-unquote experiment. And then I was basically going to press the red launch button, and I knew what the outcome of that was going to be, which was us being flooded with all kinds of new clients. And
chaos.
Just chaos. And I spoke to Jack and said, can we handle this? Are you ready? Should we break shit? And Jack said, let's do it. And then with that, we basically set everything else up and got the team ready as well, to the best of our ability.
And then we started breaking shit.
And with that, we learned a lot. And then we adapted and we've grown. So basically, we've been in the software tech space for almost a decade now.
Yeah.
Since 2014. So this is going to be our ninth year coming up. And then basically, Final Few Productions started as a media production company, and then it pivoted in 2016 into a full tech solution company where we started building a lot of custom tech. And since that period, in that time, so almost 6 years, we've never had a major pivot, or like pivot would be basically changing our business model. But we've always added new services to our suite of services. But this time, I would say, has been the most radical change that we've implemented.
Positive.
I wouldn't even say change. It's more of like we've just grown and broadened our suite of services and what we do. And we've introduced blockchain services, which is, cryptocurrency, blockchain.
Yeah, I mean.
And anything and everything that comes into it. And a lot of the projects that we're dealing with right now are basically metaverse projects, which are clients that are coming in and they already have like an open world game or a game they're developing, and they want to implement like blockchain technology with it. So it's literally in our verbiage, our day to day. It's what we live, breathe, eat now.
Yeah.
And it didn't change anything. It's just really what we've done for almost a decade. It's just helped us to be able to do this. But we had a mindset. A couple of things that we mentioned. One is we had the foresight.
I would probably say like that's like the biggest thing. You know, when we were sitting there in like summer of last year, it's like, yo, like we're like, you know, like we were kind of like always into it, but during this time last year, it's like we can do this. We have the team to do this. Like there's actually no reason why we should not do this.
That I love that you said that, because that's exactly what the time frame was. It was right around this time last year is when we were like, okay, we got to start planning. We got to stay ahead of the game.
Yeah.
We're one of the only companies that were like, honestly, there still aren't that many companies that have the power of what we can do and accomplish. And so we were just like, we have to be able to kind of come in and be able to do this. We started prepping, man. So much work went into it.
Yep.
We didn't really even launch until February of this year?
I would say like a softer launch like December, January, but then like February, March is like, okay, like
February, March is when we started seeing some positive feedback, and then we got like a crazy amount of proof of concept on this. And proof of concept is something that we talk about a lot, but we'll get into that. But we got proof of concept on this idea, I would say in March and April, maybe May, going in.
Hardcore, like we had like, you know, couple good things happen like end of February and March, but like April and May, it was like, okay, bang, 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 bang. Okay, it's working. Okay, now let's break it and like see like what we actually have here. And it's been, and we're doing really well. You know, it's super cool.
We did pretty well. Now it's basically pedal to the metal. We're kind of going all out. And the rest of the year is basically going to be that. But we love what we do. It's just one of those things where it's like we love what we do. We're super passionate, and we are constantly looking at it. Me and Jack, you look at our Instagram threads or text threads, we're constantly sharing random stuff that we see, trends and stuff, literally all day, every day, even off hours. And it's just these are things that let you can't have an off button if you're an innovator, if you're creative.
It's kind of hard not to at times, you know. But you know, obviously, you need to find some time to kind of unplug. But
for sure,
that's not really the point, right?
Today would have been our day to unplug, but we're here.
Yeah, you know, it's okay. So kind of coming back now, right? So I think this is a good opportunity, kind of based on what we just said with some of the new things that we've been doing. What are some mistakes that we avoided, right, during this period of introducing something new, right? And I want to talk about this so that when other people in their startup or have a business or implementing something new, these are things that they can avoid as well. I mean, or maybe some things that we didn't avoid, and now we can tell them how to avoid them. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we talked about this throughout like the last couple minutes as we were kind of going touching into these things and how we avoided these things. But for me, personally, do you want me to go first? Yeah.
I mean, go ahead.
For me, a couple of factors came into play, right? You know, I'm constantly looking at, you know, the stock market, the financial conditions, just, you know, what the feds are doing, all of the different plays. You have to.
How nice is this mug? It's so fucking nice. It's so fucking nice. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, that mug is nice.
It's so nice.
But for me, I think it's a combination of basically just looking at what's happening, what the market trends are, and just where everything is with the financial, with the stock market. I do this every morning when I wake up. It's part of my process, and not because I'm heavily invested. I am, but also more so about from a business standpoint. Where can I find opportunities? Where can I find angles? Where do I see something going bad and can have a potentially horrible outcome, and how can I prevent that from happening? So I'm constantly keeping an eye on it. I don't know if it's just like the paranoid cells in my body, but it's more of like I don't want to be I live life with a very strict condition of like, I don't want to be a statistic, if that makes sense. I don't of the negative things, right? I don't want to be a statistic and I want to be able to prevent whatever I can to avoid that.
Okay.
So we're obviously, everybody knows, we've been dealing with a pandemic for 2 years. And right now the market conditions, we're basically in a recession. We've been talking about this in past episodes.
Mm-hmm.
And if you know what's happening, we're in a recession. A lot of companies are having a lot of layoffs and blah, blah, blah. We've been doing things to adapt. So we've been restructuring internally. We've been trying to be more cost efficient before it gets to a point where, like, okay, customers can't afford to pay. Customers can't afford to, do this because they're dealing with financial hardship as well. Because this will affect every industry, essentially.
Yeah.
So basically, we've been taking precautions on the back end to implement changes ahead of time. We've been also working on implementing a lot of different strategies that we've never fully maximized before.
And I apologize to interrupt, but you want to circle this back to avoiding mistakes? Are we getting to that?
This is it.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I might have lost you there mentally.
This is it. This is it.
Okay, go ahead.
What the? This is it. You want me to remind?
Go ahead.
These are the things that we were doing to avoid mistakes.
Oh, right? Okay, I see.
This is us avoiding mistakes. I mean,
okay. No, I have actually a different angle, so that's fine.
I'm not trying to go like straight, do this, do that. Because it's not going to apply directly. I don't think it's going to apply. It varies from person to person. There's no way it's all going to be the same for everybody. This is kind of like what we did, right?
Yeah.
I mean, do you disagree?
No, I completely agree. Okay, so you were kind of in the framework of doing things in preparation to avoid mistakes.
No, it's just we're seeing mistakes being made across industries.
Right. So we're preparing so that we can avoid them.
This is just one example, right? It's just an example of like market conditions and what we can do to avoid any sort of future hurdles. Like this is not like, and had we not done this, and if we don't adapt, we're going to be caught up in a cyclone that we can't get out of.
Yeah.
And that's exactly my point. My point was just, we know this is going to happen.
Yeah.
This is happening.
So let's do our best to avoid it.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
And it's like, I know mistake is such a small word, but it's more like, for me personally, at least from where we are in our the span of Final Review Productions, everything that we do, it goes beyond that. A mistake isn't just like, oh, I forgot to send an email to a client. No. Let's avoid that mistake. We can talk about hundreds of mistakes like that.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, but those are small.
Yeah. What did you have? Let's hear some of these.
What I had in mind is in the example of when you're growing a team, I mean, growing, like expanding your services, right? Like for me, two things that you want to kind of keep in mind, right? One of them, I think we did really well. Other one, we learned is like, okay, for next time, we're going to check that. First thing is when you're just mentioning about breaking shit, right? Be ready for chaos, right? And I think it's important to be able to understand and be able to handle chaos, being calm in the storm, right? Especially like in a leadership role, right? So I think it's important to understand that, be ready for that, and be the example that you want everyone to follow. Mm-hmm. The other side of it is when you're doing a new service, when you're doing these experiments that as Saj likes to call them, which we do very often, is you want to control how many people are doing the experiment. You know what I mean? And especially you have a team, this might be, you want to have you want this to be a controlled experiment first, just to get that proof of concept, which I think maybe we can talk about, a little next. But make sure it's controlled. You have a couple people working on it until it's ready to now, okay, now let's scale it. Well, you got my proof of concept, let's scale it. And then that's when you might want to bring on the other 80 or 70% of the team. It's like, okay, this is what we're doing. And we're going to teach you, you're going to learn, and then we're going to start, moving out.
I think it's also important that you identify the strengths and weaknesses of the people that are on your team.
Yes, and that's a good point.
If you're in a leadership position, take before you implement anything, before you go into any of these quote unquote experiments, you want to be able to identify what every single individual is capable of doing, what they're really good at, what they're not good at, and then assign these particular projects or the responsibilities to them when conducting these experiments to be able to fully maximize the outcome or whatever the outcome may be.
Yeah, that's actually pretty important. Actually, I'm glad you brought that up. You know,
I'm glad you brought up the the experiments and control experiments. That was a good point.
Yeah, I think it's
But
important.
I mean, yeah, you're thinking more like straight to like actual things. I guess that's probably
Well,
more useful.
I mean, I think we did good. It was two angles, you know. One to avoid mistakes, having the foresight, and the other one was like, okay, we actually kind of made this mistake a little bit, and this is how I was like, this is how we fixed it, let's say, or how we'll do better next time.
About little mistakes, when I personally make mistakes, when you personally make mistakes, I know we're the type of people, me and you, where we don't bottle things in. Like we talk about shit pretty openly.
Yeah, yeah.
And like even if it's just me and you, we're basically like, okay, we fucked up right here.
Badly.
This was something we dropped the ball on.
Yep.
Let's make sure this never happens again, or this doesn't happen the next time.
Yep.
And when it does start happening the next time, we're like, oh, remember? Nope, this is where we start. So me and you are that type of people. So we do this pretty much on a lot of things on a very daily basis. So I didn't really want to dive into the micro details.
Yeah. Well, I mean, then like with that, that's how eventually you'll become like pretty efficient in what you're doing. You know, when you kind of start to build that system out. But as we're kind of coming to an end, I think there's like one more thing that we want to cover, and that would be how to use these mistakes that you've made to your advantage. Okay. For me, like we mentioned in the beginning, never a loss. It's always a lesson. And I've definitely been in a place where I've made these. I've made these mistakes, and it's like, wow, I can't believe I did that, and oh my God, this, that, and the third. But you definitely want to be in the framework of, you know what, I actually made this mistake. Now I'm actually so much better than I was, and maybe even much better than some of the people that are my competitors, let's say. So you kind of want to switch your mind around where I made this mistake. I know what to do. I know what to avoid it. Now I can go even faster. Now I can learn even more. Now I can expand even quicker.
I agree.
It's hustler's mentality.
Hustler's mentality. 101. Yeah.
What do you
for
think?
me, I guess like closing thoughts would be, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a hustler, if you're a go-getter, and that's what you're born to do, and bred to be. I just think that you, and this is gonna sound a little critical and a little harsh. You have to be your own harshest critic. Like you have to be. Like you can't rely on people and them giving you the feedback for you to improve. That can be your motto. That can be how you live and grow and create an empire for yourself. You have to constantly criticize and find holes and problems within the systems that you have in place for yourself, and try to place things to improve and get better. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with you being your own harshest critic. I just think that if you really want to be good at what you're doing, if you want to be basically at an elite level, this is what you need to do. You need to constantly.
Yeah, I think I would definitely agree with that. Now, also to not, don't get confused where it's also definitely good to have, a couple people
100%,
to check you. But, at the end of the day,
there's the people that you have to surround yourself with, people that are like-minded people that are going to check you, that are not going to be yes men. But at the same time, if the only way that you grow and evolve is by listening to what people have to tell about you, and that's, you can't be closed off to that either.
Yes.
But if that's the only way you're improving or you're making changes,
mistake.
You're not really, you don't have the entrepreneur DNA. That's what I would say.
No, I would definitely agree. Is you definitely want to have you definitely want to be your hardest critic, let's say. You know what I mean? And that's how I think a lot of times you'll be able, like at least for me, when I'm my harshest critic, like I'm able to progress like a lot quicker, and it's like you always have that burning fire, right? Actually gets right in the belly, right?
Right in the belly. I mean, circles back to kind of like what we were talking about before. You got to check your ego at the door. And a lot of times it stops people from being able to self-assess, understand. Like, man, what's the word? Accountability.
That's a whole nother episode, I think.
Well, that's it for me, folks.
Well, it's always a pleasure Mr. Saj, take a look at that mug. Take a look at that mug. I mean, I legitimately, I can't wait, like, to start pumping this stuff out. Like, I'm like, I can't wait, like, to that order comes in. I'm wearing, like, the second I open it.
Yeah.
But I get excited over this stuff, you know, especially, you know, we've been doing this for a couple of months. It's going pretty well.
We're about to be 20 episodes in, man. We've been doing this for 4+ months, and the goal is not to miss a single week all the way to the end of the year. To actually do this for a whole year, I don't think we're planning on stopping anytime soon.
Well, that, and for those listening and watching, VH has officially hit 1,000 downloads. So,
oh yeah,
we appreciate y'all very much so. And
the only one clapping is come on.
Oh yeah.
Give it a little clap. There you go.
Most of all, though, I would say is we're so happy to see that, like, the things that we say, the insight that we share is helping people, you know, because you're listening, you know, every Wednesday.
I also want to make a note before you sign us off here. We also have a TikTok and an Instagram where we post reels every single day. Well, now we will.
No, we've been doing it.
We've been doing it. We just had, you know, a little bit of, we had to take a little bit of break. We have an actual, like, social media team now. We have an editing team. Yeah. You know, people behind the scenes that are putting in a lot of work and effort into what you see. So if you don't have time to listen and watch all of these podcasts, 30, 40 minutes every week, honestly, it's not a lot of time. Hopefully we can add some value. Follow us on Instagram or TikTok because we drop some of our most, like, important parts or clips there, and we've been seeing a lot of comments, a lot of feedback on those videos. So
yeah, well, I mean, listen, VH community, we're getting, I would say, on average, let's say 1,200 to 1,500 views on YouTube at least.
Yeah.
Instagram and TikTok. Let's get that follower count up. Let's get the view count up. If we're getting them on YouTube, let's bring them over to Instagram. Maybe we'll do something cool for 1,000 followers on Instagram and TikTok. On TikTok, we're doing pretty well, so we appreciate you guys.
Yeah, TikTok, we hit 1,000.
Oh, we did?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Instagram, you know, I think we're getting there slowly but surely. So, you know, let's see what we can do here. But in closing, we appreciate you guys very, very much so. And wherever you are, I'm hoping you enjoy the day and night. And as always, show us some love on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe, Instagram, TikTok, follow us, you know, share with a friend maybe. And we'll see you next time.
Good night.
Yeah, venture hustles, life is really what you make it. Building up your brand is whatever you create it. Really ain't no limit. You just gotta love it. Working day and night, it's all about the venture hustle. Hey, venture hustle.